Welcome to Sumita Roy's English Classroom. This is Professor Sumita Roy, and today we shall talk about some tips for improving your vocabulary. Why is vocabulary important? That's a question many people ask. That we can do LSRW, we can communicate well, we can speak and write. Why do we need vocabulary? The reason you need vocabulary is because all your ideas, all your thoughts, all what you want to say has to be expressed using some words. These words form your vocabulary. Many of you know English enough to understand English. You might not be able to speak English, but you can understand when it is spoken. I have met thousands of such people who are able to understand the language clearly, but when it comes to speaking or writing, they hesitate. There, the problem is vocabulary because when you want to speak, your mind is blank. You do not have any words there. You have ideas, but the ideas are expressible in your mother tongue, in the language which you know, not in the language which you want to learn, and that is English. So, if you have a good vocabulary which you use constantly, your English communication improves. Vocabulary makes your language interesting. Vocabulary gives clarity to your language. If somebody wants to speak to you, you must speak spontaneously. And that spontaneity comes when your vocabulary is good. Correctness comes when you are confident about your vocabulary. You don't keep searching in your mind saying, which word should I use? It happens very often. You start speaking and then you cannot get a word. Recently, I was traveling in some of the Scandinavian countries. We had wonderful guides, local guides, but their English was not so good that they could express everything. They would start a sentence and then midway they would hesitate a little. We could guess what they were trying to say, but they did not have enough words to say it. Then, if any of us helped by giving them a word or two, they would felt very happy and they continued with their description. So you can imagine that in all situations, in our professional lives, in our personal lives, in communication, we require that a good vocabulary is available to us immediately, not by thinking, because I'm talking mainly about speaking now, and therefore the vocabulary you require for speaking is important. What does one do to improve one's vocabulary? One exercise which I would like all of you to do is to look at a passage, either listening or reading passage, and see how much of it you understand. Sometimes you might understand only 10 or 15%. Many words are difficult, you cannot understand them. So you get bored and you leave that. You might start watching this video. Then after some time you say, oh, this is too difficult, and you leave it. That is a possibility. The problem is your vocabulary. The second is that you look at this passage or you listen to this passage or read this passage and you go on listening or reading to the same passage maybe for 5 or 6 days or 10 days till the words become clear in their meaning. I can tell you an example that if you want to learn any language, If you watch the movies in that language without subtitles for 6 months, you will be able to understand that language fully. You won't have problems because all the actions are in front of you. You're watching the movie, and then you are able to understand slowly. First, you're guessing, and then when you keep hearing the words again and again, you are able to immediately guess what the meaning is. You start using them when you speak, and that is how vocabulary improves. In vocabulary, we usually have two varieties. One is the active vocabulary, which is available right in front of our brains. And the other is a storehouse, passive vocabulary, which is available somewhere hidden in our brain. The passive vocabulary is very good. If you're reading a newspaper article, your passive vocabulary helps you to understand that article. You might not know the words, each word and its meaning, but you get the gist of the whole article easily. But your passive vocabulary becomes active only then your communication improves. If your passive vocabulary remains passive, it does not help your active vocabulary or your active communication, because you have to keep transferring the words from the passive to the active part of your brain so that the words are available to you. They are not something which you're searching for. For instance, let us take some words which come to our mind immediately. We have a word like okay, or good, or nice, or awesome. These are words which we use every day, all the time. Now, can you not use better words to make your communication more interesting, clearer, more individual, different? If I ask you, how was the movie? If you didn't like it, you say okay. If you liked it, you say awesome. Now, can you not use the word engrossing? If it's awesome, then it's engrossing. That means full time your attention was in the movie. You were not thinking of anything else. You can say interesting. You can say suspenseful. If till the end you didn't know what was happening, then it was suspenseful. You can also say that colorful. If the pictures were very good, the locations were excellent, then you say colorful. If the language was very warm, then you say colorful. Many such examples are possible. If you didn't like it, you said okay, then you can say boring. You can say unwatchable. You can say dull. You can say waste of time. There are so many ways you can express yourself. But these words should be available to you. These are all there in your passive vocabulary. The problem is they don't come to your active vocabulary. And that is where the problem begins. That although you can listen and understand, although you can read and understand, when it comes to speaking, you cannot. You hesitate. You search for the word. And by the time you're searching for that word, the communication link is lost. Communication has to be continuous. You cannot give a gap of 5 minutes and say, I'm searching for a word. This is how vocabulary develops. So, if you can think of the words which are there in your own passive vocabulary, I cannot tell you because I don't know each of you, but I can tell you as a general rule that your passive vocabulary may have 5,000 words or 2,000 words if your English is of a lower level, or even 1,000 words, of which you are only using 100, 200 words. There are 800 words which are in the passive vocabulary. Each day, if you try to bring 5 words into your active vocabulary. That will be a great exercise. Bringing them into your active vocabulary means using them in your speaking, making contexts where these words can be used. I use the word engrossing. I use the word interesting. I use the word dull. I use the word boring just now. Go on using them because these are all words you know, but they don't come to your mind when you start speaking. That is the problem, because we cannot find the right word when we are looking for it. So if you do that, that is one step. Many of you who are appearing for competitive exams might learn 100 words per day. You learn the word, you learn its meaning, and you go for the exam. You get all the full marks. But out of those 100 marks, if I tell you to use any word, you fail. Somebody was using the word facade, F-A-C-A-D-E. They knew the meaning of the word, but when I asked them to use it in a sentence, they could not. I can say, the facade of this building is very beautiful. The facade is the outer appearance. This usage is what is important. Then somebody said, oh, I know the meaning of the word plethora. Plethora means plenty. You know a big word, you know what its meaning is, but you can't use it. When we went to the flower market, we saw a plethora of blooms. So you are saying plenty of flowers were there in the flower market. These words you might learn their meaning, but they never come back to your mind because they are in your passive vocabulary. They are not there in your active vocabulary. So first step is to increase your active vocabulary. The second step is, if you can, per day, if you learn 1 or 2 new words, words which you don't know, words which are not there in your passive vocabulary also, but you have come across it when you're reading or when you're listening, you came across 2 new words. You came across 20, out of which take 2 only. And then practice that for the whole day. You will get a lot of benefit by doing that. Words sometimes tell us what kind of a person is using them. That means that words are a judge to our personality. It is a measure of our personality. You need to speak simple English, but you need to make your language accurate. The exact word at the exact context. That is what is important. Let us take some simple examples. For instance, you say walk, walk. Instead of saying walk all the time, there are different places where the walk changes. Suppose a person is walking with long steps, the steps are very long. Then we say stride, S-T-R-I-D-E, stride. So stride is to walk with long footsteps, very fast. With confidence, you are walking from one end to the other, stride. Then you have the word amble. Amble means to walk slowly. You're talking to your friend or you're looking at the beautiful scenery around you. What you do, you walk very slowly. Amble. Then you have perambulate. You go from this side to that and you come back again. Perambulate. Then you have the word roam. Roam also can mean many other things, many other ways, but sometimes walk and roam. Walking aimlessly without knowing where you're going, that is roam. So walk is a simple verb. All of us use it. But When we want to improve our vocabulary, we should also know that all these are different kinds of walks. Suppose while walking, you hit a stone or something and you just, do like that. That is called stumble. So that's also a part of walking, because when you're walking, you just hit a barrier and you are almost falling. You don't fall fully, it's just a stumble. So when you know how to use these words, when you have this as a part of your vocabulary, what happens is that you can use it whenever it is required, instead of making your vocabulary very boring, or instead of making your vocabulary something which is very monotonous, which is just the same words being repeated again and again. You have to change it. While speaking, suppose two sentences you use the same word, or three, four sentences you use the same word. The idea is that you should change the words into synonyms. We shall do synonyms and vocabulary. I'm doing special videos only on vocabulary, but you might not like those, you know, videos because you find, oh, they are so boring. Just give us some tips to improve our vocabulary. So that's what I'm doing today. Now take another verb like eat, simple verb. Suppose you're eating very fast, then we say gobble. Gobble means you go on and on and on putting your food into your mouth, and that is gobble. Or you can take a small piece and go on, biting little out of it. Then we call it nibble. Nibble, gobble, gobble and nibble. Then you just take the food inside and you take it in. You don't do anything else with the food. We call it swallow. Or you go on, keeping the food in your mouth and moving your jaws around. We say chew. We have to chew our food, but don't do it endlessly. You see, cows and all, they go on doing, after eating for a very long time, they chew cud, C-U-D. So when you see a cow, you say, okay, the cow is chewing cud. When you keep looking at this, when you expand your experience, then your vocabulary also improves. This is how we have to learn that vocabulary is something which helps us a lot. Now, suppose I gave you two videos on collocation. Not many people are seeing it, but collocation is most important. You take two words like quick and fast. Quick is fast, fast is quick. We can use them interchangeably. But collocation is important here. We cannot say quick train. We say fast train. We can say quick for other things. But for a train, we cannot use quick, although quick and fast both imply speed. So there, collocation is very important. Unless we know collocation, we often make mistakes in our use of vocabulary. And that is where we have to be very careful. There are certain words which are similar to each other. There also we make very often some mistake or the other. Words which are similar, like affect, A-F-F-E-C-T, and effect, E-F-F-E-C-T. The only difference is one vowel sound, one vowel symbol, and that is A and E. What is the difference? You should know, otherwise you will make mistakes in the use of them. The effect of this, weather change, the effect of global warming is excess of rain. That is effect. Effect being used as a verb here to show what impact it had. What is the result it had? You can say that the this news affected all of them. Some news came, and by that news, everybody was happy or everybody was sad. So you are using it. The news affected them. Here, the usage is the usage of showing what has happened. We cannot say the news affected them, because effect is something which is coming from outside, and effect is something which is coming differently. I have plans to make videos on all these aspects. Suppose you want to say that we are waiting for 100 years. Instead of saying 100 years, you can say we are waiting for a century. Century is a better word, a single word. You say, our leader is well known to everybody. Instead of saying well known to everybody, you can say, our leader is popular. So, what are you doing? You are making language very precise. You're making language very simple and also using the right word. Instead of using so many words, you are condensing it into a single word, which is, very powerful. We say we believe in God who's all powerful. Now, instead of using the word God who is all powerful, we say omnipotent God. Omnipotent. Omni means all, potent means power. So we join them together, we have the word omnipotent. And we believe in an omnipotent God. The sentence has become so nice. It has become, so concise, so precise, so clear. Therefore, improving your vocabulary is a first priority for you to improve. The vocabulary for beginners begins with identifying objects. You look around yourself, see every object, and see, can you really name all these objects? Do you know what they are called in English? Or do you have a problem? Do you have a struggle? Vocabulary is very culture specific. That means in cultures where a word is used very often, there that has many words. I gave you this example in an earlier video. I'm repeating that example again. For instance, rice. In the English speaking countries where English is spoken as the mother tongue, people might not have rice very often. They might not eat rice like many of us do all the time. So, our preparations of rice have so many different meanings, words, vocabulary in our language, which you cannot translate. You translate as fried rice, boiled rice, curd rice, lemon rice, tamarind rice, and so on. But these, tomato rice, flavored rice, all of them are descriptions. You are putting an adjective in front of rice. But look at your own language. We have so many words to describe them. If I say pulao, it is very difficult for me to translate that into English because we do not have that food being eaten in that culture. In English, the native places where English is spoken, you might have many fruits, vegetables, food items which cannot be translated into our own language. Somebody was teaching a poem called Daffodils by Wordsworth. Now, how to show the student a daffodil? Daffodil does not grow in Hyderabad, so it's difficult to show the flower. You can now, of course, there is Google, so you can Google it and show that this is the flower. So, beginners need to identify everything around, including your emotions, your feelings. What are they called? Including the verbs. I am sitting. If I get up from the chair, then I say I'm standing, or I stand, I sit. You identify the parts of the body. You identify your house, your family, your neighbors. All these identifications is a vocabulary building exercise for beginners. But today I have not concentrated only on beginners. I'm making many videos for beginners where I'm teaching them to identify various objects so that they can make sentences with those objects which they have seen. I'm doing it step by step so that they learn easily, because many comments sometimes come in a script which is not English. It is Telugu or Hindi, which I can read, or some other language also, which I may not be able to read. Therefore, to improve your vocabulary, do these things. One is identify how much you can understand. What is your active vocabulary and what is your passive vocabulary? Try to get words out of your passive vocabulary into your active vocabulary by using them while speaking. Speak to yourself if you have no friends. Don't worry about others. Speak to yourself. And once you speak to yourself, you will find that you are getting 100% opportunity. If you have a friend to speak to, the friend might speak 90%, give you only 10% chance. Whereas if you speak to yourself 100% speaking, you do it on your own. That is a great benefit. If you can do all this, I'm sure your vocabulary will improve. But it needs a lot of hard work. Please do not plan to learn English in a shortcut or in the easiest possible way. I'm trying to simplify it, but simplification also means lot of time and lot of effort on your part. So if you invest your time and your effort, your vocabulary will improve. So start by listening and reading to understand all the words which are used and to note down words which you could not understand. If the listening passage has subtitles, you can note down the word. Of course, sometimes the Google subtitles give wrong spellings, so you don't get what the word is. Then the reading is better. I will do a video on what you should read and which books are interesting for you to develop your vocabulary. I will do that later. Today, this is enough for this video. Thank you and all the best.